This draft season, I'm kicking off the ranking festivities early, discussing the top players at every position before the season even starts. Once again, my face cam isn't working, but next up is the tight ends, and while this class isn't anything spectacular, there's a large variety of backgrounds and play styles to discuss. If you're new, subscribe to the channel as I will be releasing draft content all year long. But for now, I'm Chase Keller, and welcome to Preseason Top 10 Tight Ends in the 2025 NFL Draft. Enjoy. Just like the other episodes so far, these are not my personal rankings. Instead, these are the rankings on Mock Draft Database's consensus big board. With that being said, let's hop into this list. Kicking off this video is Clemson tight end Jake Brenningstool, who ranks number 10 on this list. As a former 4-star recruit, Brenningstool has developed every year of his career and is finding his mold as he enters his 4th season. Most recently, he went for 50 receptions, just under 500 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I would not be surprised if he becomes one of the best receiving tight ends in the country this year, primarily because of his athleticism. He's got some elite speed for the position, which gives him the upside as a vertical threat at the next level, which is rare at tight end. He's difficult to stop in the open field, as using good vision and lateral agility, he's very hard to take down. And he's got a very wide catch radius, which will make him a good red zone threat at the next level. But a very lean frame is the sacrifice for a big catch radius and athleticism, as Brenningstool stands at 6'6", 230 pounds. That lean frame will hinder his blocking capabilities in the NFL, but it already does in college, especially as a pass blocker. Along with that, he only has 3 career drops on 116 targets, a drop percentage of 2.6%, but he does tend to make body catches instead of catching it with his hands. Brenningstool is a very solid receiving threat who has only gotten better with time. Will that translate to the NFL? We don't know just yet. But what we do know is that Brenningstool ranks number 10 on this list. Moving on to number 9, we have our first transfer of the video with Michigan State tight end Jack Velling. As a transfer from Oregon State, it seems as if he is just following in the footsteps of quarterback Aiden Childs. He was a productive tight end as a sophomore, pulling in 29 receptions for 438 yards and 8 touchdowns. That adds up to 15.1 yards per catch and a career number of 16 in that stat. That gives off his ability to get vertical and make plays there. I mentioned vertical upside for Brenningstool, but the upside has already been proven in Velling's case. He also works super well in traffic, able to make some crazy catches primarily because of his catch radius and physicality at catch point. Route running wise, his spatial awareness stands out as he's able to find those zones and get into them fairly easily. Negatively, he doesn't show much in the blocking game, not having the best technique and overall play strength in that aspect. He also struggles to defeat press coverage, and overall, his physicality just only shows when he's competing for the ball. And athletically, he doesn't have the explosiveness that you want a deep threat to have, so that could hold him back at the next level. Velling has a very intriguing skill set for the tight end position, and as a result, he ranks 9th on this consensus tight ends list. Something about Utah and their 7th year players. The number 8 spot on this list belongs to their tight end, Brant Kuithe. He will be turning 25 years old as the 2024 season wraps up, but he's shown some very solid potential throughout his career. He hoists career numbers of 1,882 yards on 148 receptions and a touchdown total of 16. But he has not played since September of 2022 due to a torn ACL. And now he looks to put himself back on the map. What he has shown is some phenomenal route running for the position, showcasing both a good route tree and some very solid agility. That agility also ties into his ability to be a playmaker, as getting the ball in the short game gives him lots of opportunities. He also has a super well-rounded athletic profile, combining explosiveness with that agility to build that profile. Now, he definitely does not have the frame of your typical tight end, as he stands at just 6'2", 229 pounds. That frame gives him struggles as a blocker, and honestly, the physicality that he brings is just not up to par whatsoever. It's to a point where if he doesn't get drafted high, he could play running back at the next level. Finally, he has some issues with his hands, dropping 9 passes on 101 targets over the last 2 seasons. Oh, and of course, he'll be a 25-year-old rookie. But he's got some great receiving and athletic traits to his game where a team could just draft him as an athlete and an offensive player. As a result, he still stands strong, being 8th on this list. We move away from the 7th year players, but still talk about a 5th year player with Ole Miss tight end Caden Preseason at number 7. He's been a very solid player over the last 2 seasons, and now he tries to have his best season yet after returning to school. Over the last 2 seasons, he's amassed over 1,000 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns, all on just 78 receptions. The thing with Preseason is that he's just a natural receiver at the tight end position. He shows this at all 3 levels of the field, including route running in the short-medium game and reliable hands and body control in the deep game. He also shows good blocking capabilities when it comes to the run game, using good technique to neutralize defenders. And on top of all of this, he's got a prototypical frame at 6'5", 255 pounds, one that teams are really going to appreciate. Where Preseason doesn't win is with his athleticism, in which he doesn't have a refined athletic profile just yet. As a result, he won't be great in the open field and will find most of his success as a short game tight end. He's likely more scheme specific at the next level due to this skill set, as he will fit in schemes that utilize check or block and release plays. But the skill set also brings in a good amount of promise going into the NFL. He's number 7 on this list. A bigger name tight end holds the 6th spot on this list, that being North Carolina's Bryson Nesbitt. He's a bigger name because he had the draft stock to potentially be a 4th or 5th round pick in the 2024 NFL draft. Instead, he stays at school to possibly increase his stock a few notches, maybe become a day 2 selection. The production is definitely there, with numbers of 1,092 yards and 9 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. He's able to get open so well because of his athleticism, which sticks out so much. He's a super explosive tight end who combines that with great lateral agility to become a lethal route runner, routes that will easily translate over. He also has the yak ability because of that athleticism, and it's paid off with his 352 yards of yak over the last 2 years. He also has 5 drops on 118 career targets, proving that he has the reliable hands to succeed. What goes up must come down, as I like to address when talking about sacrificing good physicality for great athleticism. Nesbitt just doesn't have the blocking capabilities to work as a 3-down tight end, as he's a liability on run downs. His pad level is also super awkward, which takes away from the blocking but also potential yak ability at the next level. On top of that, his skill set isn't particularly molded for a tight end, as he just feels like a wide receiver trapped in a tight end's body. But Nesbitt still absolutely has pure upside as a receiving tight end, and he might be sought out as a reliable threat right out the gate. Because of this, he ranks number 6 on this 2025 NFL Draft tight ends list. 5 prospects down, 5 to go. At number 5 on this list is Brock Bowers' replacement in Georgia tight end Oscar Delp. He's ranked this high because he isn't just some random replacement. He has produced and flashed some serious upside. His sophomore season saw 24 receptions for 284 yards and a trio of touchdowns, which isn't bad considering he was the number 2 tight end. Delp has a fairly consistent skill set for the position. Beginning with the receiving game, he's a very solid route runner with the agility to get open. He also has the alignment versatility that NFL teams will fall in love with. It's very similar to Bowers, except Delp plays more inline than slot. And he's a willing blocker who capitalizes on his great technique to neutralize a defender. As a result, he's a 3-down impact player. On the flip side, Delp doesn't break a lot of tackles, even though his agility is very good for the position. His frame also raises questions, as while he is well built at 6'5", 245 pounds, most of his strength comes from his upper body. And obviously, a minimal amount of production is going to raise questions, and this upcoming season is absolutely crucial for his stock, especially noting that Benjamin Urasek came into town through the portal. I think Delp has the skill set and the ability to bloom in the 2024 season, so I'm not surprised that his stock lands him at 5th on this list. Penn State's Theo Johnson was a 4th round draft pick in 2024, but there was a player who outproduced him last season. That player takes up the number 4 spot as Tyler Warren broke out in 2023. 34 receptions for 422 yards and 7 touchdowns, having the same amount of receptions and touchdowns as Johnson, but for nearly 100 more yards. There are concerns with his game, but there are strengths that make this position justifiable, 2 spots lower than Johnson's draft position. First off, both his physicality and athleticism show out. Physicality-wise, he's very good in contested catch situations. According to PFF, he's made 8 catches in traffic on 12 targets in traffic, which is a phenomenal rate of 66.7%. He also is a very solid blocker, as he can use good play strength to somewhat neutralize defenders. Athletically, he uses some elite agility to be a fantastic route runner, as the former quarterback really shows his traits. While Warren has clearly outproduced Johnson several times, he also has been outproduced just as much. If you take out the bowl game against Ole Miss last season, he would have less receptions, less yards, and more touchdowns than Johnson. He also has some downsides about his blocking, specifically his technique that holds him back on most reps. And finally, it's clear that he is still learning the tight end position, as he is super inconsistent in everything he does. But Warren has great upside at the position, and if he was a tight end in high school, he could well be a 2nd round pick by now. But for now, he's in the 4th round and is also ranked 4th on this list. As we discuss the top 3, we have a huge jump in overall ranking. That starts at 64th overall with Notre Dame tight end Mitchell Evans. Surprisingly, the Fighting Irish didn't produce a tight end in last year's draft, but that's because Evans decided to stay another year despite being draft eligible. In just 8 games last year due to injury, Evans caught 29 passes for 422 yards and a touchdown, including averaging 5 targets a game. First off, Evans has the prototypical frame for a NFL tight end at 6'5", 260 pounds. He impacts a lot in the receiving game, including with his reliable hands, as he has 2 career drops on 49 career targets. He finds most of his success when facing zone coverage, as his spatial awareness is very solid. He also is a very solid inline blocker, having success with his technique and his very good play strength on the line. Now here's what's surprising. Evans had 14.6 yards per reception in 2023, but his athletic profile just is not complete at all. His speed is just very under average, and he doesn't have the agility to run great routes either. Finally, his injury is an obvious question, as we don't know how he will recover from the torn ACL that hindered his 2023 season. Evans seems like he's going to be an interesting prospect to monitor in the 2024 season, and for that reason, he's number 3 on this consensus tight ends list. We have another injury question as we move on to number 2 here, as Iowa tight end Luke Lachey only played in 3 games last season. His career production is something to enjoy, with 46 receptions for 662 yards and 4 touchdowns. We know how good Sam Laporta is, and he was pretty good in college, but Lachey outproduced him in touchdowns despite the volume. Lachey did suffer that nasty ankle injury last season, but that shouldn't take away from what he's already shown us as a prospect. That begins with his physicality, as he plays with fantastic play strength. This shows both in his good blocking capabilities and his ability at the catch point, which is actually at the top of this tight end class. Makes sense given his 6'6", 253 pound frame. He combines that elite catch point production with very reliable hands, having only 2 drops on 72 career targets. And on top of that, he is super smart out of zone looks and has the spatial awareness that teams are going to love. Negatively, he's not a great route runner and he won't intimidate you as a man coverage threat. He's also not a big threat when it comes to athleticism, particularly his explosiveness that really holds him back. And of course, that ankle injury is going to bring questions. He will have had nearly a year to heal, but it was a really bad injury. I will possibly be watching Lachey's return to football in person this season, so I'll update you guys there. But anywho, despite the injury, Lachey maintains the number 2 spot on this list. And finally, ranked number 1 on this 2025 NFL Draft tight ends list is none other than Michigan tight end Colston Loveland. As a sophomore, he exploded in the 2023 season, becoming debatably the second best tight end in the country, only behind Bowers. He went for 649 yards on 45 receptions and 4 touchdowns last season. Very impressive statistics for a sophomore. What's also very impressive is his ability to be an impact player everywhere. Let's start with the receiving end of things. He's a fantastic route runner who combines a nuanced route skill set and good agility to be an absolute threat on the receiving end. Speaking of athleticism, his explosiveness is top tier, whether that be off the line or after the catch. On the blocking end of things, he's shown great production as a run blocker, getting off the line fast and getting the first strike. His play strength is extremely good, and overall, Loveland just has so many positive traits to his game. Now, despite the explosiveness being a huge positive, he does have a weak release package and struggles against press coverage. Teams just won't want to give him space, so he will see a good amount of press coverage in the league. He also needs to add more weight and strength to his lower body, as he doesn't have the preferred leg drive for the position. But that's about it. That's all the weak stuff I can say about Loveland. He's just a stud. And because he's a stud, he ranks as the current best tight end on the 2025 NFL Draft Consensus Big Board. Well, those are the current 10 best tight ends in the 2025 NFL Draft. Is there anyone that should be on this list? Let me know in the comments section below. Wait, are you not subscribed yet? Well, do it now. I release content like this all the time and would really appreciate your support. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and I will see you all next time.